Hi there, traders, and welcome to Trade the Structure and the morning Jumpstart macro view, where we take a look at the action from overnight into European and US sessions. We cover over what happened in Asia also, and we take a look at what to expect going forward. So we'll look at some commodities, obviously, all the bits and pieces where we can potentially have some trade ideas off key levels we're looking for. Okay, so looks like overnight a bit of safe haven buying. You saw gold rally, US dollar didn't rally. That's sort of more range bound. It's come back into that support zone, which you'll see. But remember, they have got US payrolls on Friday night, so the US dollar might just be a bit of a delayed reaction until it sees what the payroll numbers come out at. Okay, so yeah, gold rallied, oil rallied. Your bonds had a bit of a bounce, so yields come down, and a bit of safe haven buying to those as well. So it was across the board as a day after Russia said they will scale down operations. They come around and bomb the outskirts of Kyiv. So they've done that time and time again. You come into talks, everyone's expecting some sort of peace talks, and Russia, the opportunistic, go and bomb something. So it sort of saw the market after 4 days of gains in the US. It saw some risk-off aversion into the US markets, but as can happen, and it happens a lot, into the close, you've got the algos working the markets back up again, okay, off those lows and just trying to ramp it up into the close. Now, they're really just minimizing gains overnight, but previous sessions, they've just been ramping it and extending on those gains into the close. So um, they worked their magic last night. We'll look at, this is just a US dollar, you can see. So it's holding above that 97,500, so 97.50 level. Okay, it's just holding above that zone there, and it's just pushing back into that zone. Like I said, you got payrolls out, and it's just a bit of buyers easing out of the market. So a lot of the expectations are already factored in for rate rises. You can see that bonds, they've been heading south for quite a while. Okay, longer term heading down. They actually just finding some buying down here. I would expect that they've factored in a lot, the rate rises. They're talking up. Well, bonds are showing a lot more rate rises than probably what the market might be expecting. But you can see that yields have really been climbing and bonds have been pressing down. That's the 2 years. We've got the 10 years, which is much of the same, longer term being pressing down, finding a bit of buying there. So it's really what's happening from the short to longer term picture. Okay, so everyone's talking about the inverted yield curve for the 2 and 10 years. I think I was listening to something last night. It was really interesting. Really good commentator and talking about it's not so much, everyone says, okay, once you get that inversion of the yield curve for the 2 and 10s, then that's preceded by a major market correction down. Okay, maybe depression, whatever you want to call it. But it's not so much when it turns; it's when they start to have to lift rates again later on down the track. So it's yeah, it has led it, but it's not for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. When in the past, that's what's happened. 2 years later, after the inversion, then you get that major rate rising cycle as they try to cool inflation. Okay, so maybe that's why the Fed has been a lot more cautious now, not raising as fast as probably what they need, letting inflation get out of hand because they don't want to go and knock it on the head later on, having to try to play catch up with rate rises. Okay, so that's bonds we're looking at now. We'll get over to our, here we go. That's the Aussie market. So we'll start off here. 5 minute chart. You've got that was the action from yesterday. Pretty much chopped around like it does during the day. It doesn't give us much direction at all. It's most of the action is overnight. It's getting lifted overnight, pushed up, and that's dragging the index, underlying index, open stronger or up when it opens the next day. So you can see that the market opened here, 950, pressed down to that 75.74, popped up to that 75.09, and back down to the close. Opened up, pretty much meandered sideways during the European session before taking off, excuse me, at the start of the US session to push up through the highs, 75.09, flushed, floundered around through there, tried to keep going, but then the US got sold off into the close and the market come back down again. So that was about, after Europe closed again, they sold off. So might have dragged the FTSE higher, and then the market sold off after that. So the FTSE will be playing catch up, I'd say, tonight. Sold off. So what I'm expecting, I would expect a bit of a flush. I just expect this market to continue to be strong over this session anyway, coming to the end of quarter. Just try to hold on to these gains coming to the end of the quarter and then do what they've got to do. Maybe you'll see on Friday day session, you might see some selling coming into the market, being the start of a new month, start of a new quarter, and then you've got payrolls out that night. So today I do expect any sort of push, maybe a flush into that 75, 74 to hold. I would expect also, that's kind of what I'm looking for, that pop up into on the open up to 75.09, even through that, maybe a little bit higher, but then a bit of a fade into the close as we start to grind our way back down again. Okay, so the bigger term picture, we've got the ASX 200 here, 30-minute chart. It's just been one-way action up. It's been held up at the moment at 75.02. Okay, so that's kind of the anchor to this uptrend. It is coming back into that level, but you can see it's basically up. Okay, it's still up. So it can easily turn around and flush into that level and bounce back up again and hold that uptrend. Okay, Hang Seng. Now the Hang Seng ramping up, so it's to consolidating these gains. You can see from a long time ago. So that was the big sell-off, bounced straight back up, and it's trying to consolidate these gains at the moment, holding those levels. Holding between, was it 22,375 and 22,135 at the moment. It had a bit of a ramp up the start of the US session and then grind straight back down to that support zone. So it'd be interesting to see the open. It's very important on the Hang Seng. It's either going to flush down and do something like this, potentially even flush lower and start to bounce. But I'm thinking if it's going to flush down, it's going to hold that 22,137, so 135, maybe flush into these lows here, take these lows out. It may just go a bit lower through there and then bounce back up again. So it doesn't want to close down there. It just wants to take out that stops, look for that liquidity. Okay. On the upside, it probably could. I'll be looking for. I'm sort of expecting that today. It's the last few sessions been spiking down and then recovering. I would expect maybe something like this. A bit of flush into that high 22,375, and then a bit of a fade. We can get a short on there. Okay. The Nikkei, Japan market. They had a bit of a sell-off. Now that gap down was just the CFD. I think it was just rebalancing positions for dividends on that market there. On the other CFDs, you look at IG or others, it wasn't doing that. So they do it at different times. I'm expecting. So that gap down there, I thought it was something big, but it really wasn't. Nothing was really happening. Nothing else was showing up in the currencies or anything like that. That we might get a bit of a sell-off. It looked like it was going to gap down, but no other equity markets were doing the same. All right, so you got the markets pressed down yesterday, held lower highs all the way down into that 27,737. It started to bounce. You got this bounce was it late into just after the close of the Nikkei. Nikkei closed, I think, at 4. Okay, that was around 4, just after 4. 4 o'clock, bounced up here. Found a resistance zone at 28,020, and that's confirmed. Okay, then we take out this low. So really, that flush through the lows, is it going to be a lower high here? It looks like it could be a lower high, and you've got it sort of back into this area here where it could easily find some selling, grind, chop around here, maybe even flush it. I'm sort of looking for this flush at that level, and then a lower high to work into for a move back down through 27,737, even at 27,600. Okay, another continuation of this move down. Otherwise, that's just a flush, and we're going to come back and retest that level, this level, and hold and go higher. Basically looking to go back into 28,020, even higher. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at on the Nikkei today. Dow was stuck again between these two levels, 35,237, 35,325. I'll spit that out, 35,055. Okay, so it held between there yesterday. That little flush up on the open, back down and back up again. So yesterday it actually on the open here, you can see at 11:30, 12:30 here, it spiked up into that level and then faded. But once it come down to this level, you got the elbows just ramping up into the close. Okay, so really range bound sort of a market, testing the highs, testing into lows. So I'd expect that to continue today, unless there's, for whatever reason, there's a news-driven sell-off into the Asian markets and the Dow follows suit. Otherwise, if there's no real news, say on Russia, Kyiv to create that fear, then the market's going to be range bound between these two levels, I would expect, and potentially just straight on the open of the US session tonight, back up there again, maybe trying to break that high, potentially go a bit higher for the last day of the month. Okay, US tech, so the Nasdaq faded. We were talking about this yesterday, fading off that highs at 15,267, somewhere around here. That's 4 a.m. It was somewhere around, yes, here. So we're looking at that level yesterday. We were talking up around here, fading off there. It's flushed up and then back down again. So it held a nice little lower high and then pushed down to 15,060. So it's taken out that zone. I mean, it's not a massive zone at the moment, but what we'd be looking for is that lower high starts to hold, potentially anywhere around these areas. It starts to hold in there and start to get lower high and pressure. You'd expect it to start attacking these lows at 15,016 and potentially go lower. Now, Germany is interesting. We were talking about that big breakout. So that was, to me, a massive stop hunt. Okay, they took out that liquidity, ramped the market higher, took out all the stops, and it's come back into that level to retest. Potentially, is it a retest or is it just failure off these highs? And that was just one big flush on, you're looking back timeframes. We're on the 15-minute at the moment, but if you start to look at the daily charts, you can see that was potentially a clear spike. And it's up in the air at the moment as whether it's a retest or whether we get further failure back below the level. And if that's the case, and this is a major daily flush, and we get a retest back below the level, expect that any sort of retest into it or that zone and failure again is going to see a bigger sell-off. All right, but we'll just keep an eye on that one there. it's an interesting level. I think if it starts to hold, yeah, we've got a little buying opportunity. We start to get this kind of action, then we get a bit of a buying opportunity straight back up again. But I think all that DAX is not really playing catch up. I was going to say to the US markets, but that's what I'll be looking for on the open. Being the last day as mostly tonight, if we can hold that and sort of pop up. But if it does, like I said, if it starts to sell off and get back below there, then there could be a bigger picture move down. UK, the FTSE, it's holding up nicely. It pushed up into this high at 75.84. It did fail, but ran straight back up into the close there, and that's at coming to the US close there. So their market actually is going to open up a little bit stronger if you're taking into account the FTSE market. This is just open a little bit weaker on the just now when it's reopened for the CFD. I would expect that level to hold 75.84 today. It could flush up through there. I would expect if it's going to see some sort of failure, I would think that the market wants to do that, trade down and just flush that highs because it's traded into the highs, traded just slightly lower, and tried to get up there before, so it may flush on the open tonight and then fade. Okay, so just be wary of that. If you don't really look at to take longs off that level, you want to see that level confirmed. You want to see, if you're really desperate to take a long, you want to see that kind of action there where you can get a long off there and you know exactly where your risk is. Otherwise, I'm expecting it to just be a flush and fade back below. Okay, we get over to currency markets. So US dollar down. Now the RBA, the Aussies finding love because of interest rates, and that's why I've been talking about it for a while. RBA it's all about the carry trade, you can call it, or the interest rate differential between the two currencies. In this case, it's US dollar and Aussie dollar. Now, both of those currencies are talking up inflation, okay, and they're talking up interest rate rises. The RBA and the Fed Reserve both talking up that. So, US dollar generally is finding, it's probably had a bit overvalued, been above that 97.50 area, and that's why you're getting this chop until we get some sort of decent news up where you've got higher employment numbers, lower unemployment data, or anything like that. Okay, inflation kicking off, you've got oil kicking up again. So if that start to pressure inflation against the upside, you might find the US dollar bounce on expectations going to be more rate rises. But at the moment, it seems to be within that range is kind of where it's at the moment. It's hovering around there. All the rate rises are factored in. But you also got the Aussie dollar factoring in rate rises. That's why you're not really seeing on any move down, any move up in the US dollar, a fade into the Aussie, okay, because it's actually got its own. So the carry trade there is not so different. Whereas you're looking at, say, the euro, which is not talking about rate rises at all, and the US dollar is, that's why it's fluctuating quite a bit. All right, so you got with the Aussies, you're getting support zone through here at 75.03. So that's sort of intraday what I'll be looking at. You've also got this little double top up here. It's just pushing up into that level now, around, say, 75.20, thereabouts, just up at this zone. I would be looking for that. It could just be range bound. And don't forget, with payrolls coming out, I think that's a nice support zone there. You've got a nice little higher low. If we get another little minor, little higher low, we might flush up through here, get another minor higher low. It might set you up for a trade and push into that 75.30 area. Okay, it's only 10 pips or so, but it could easily extend. Through into these highs there or even higher. Okay, so that would be just a short scalping kind of a trade. But for now, if we do flush and start to fade back below the level, then you're looking for a bigger move down. All right, the euro found a bit of love with that US dollar sell-off back into support, but I think this is extended up here. Remember, the US dollar sort of is ranging. Remember, between the highs and that 97.50. Now it's down on that 97.50. It's going to hold that, which I would expect it may flush into it, but I would expect that to hold ahead of payrolls tomorrow night, which would mean if that's going to hold, you're going to probably get a bit of a short squeeze. Any short's been pushing it down into that zone, squeezed out, the market pops, euro goes down. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking for on the euro, maybe some sort of lower high to hold in here and the market to pressure down potentially through, basically through that zone there. See if we can push back down again through, I'll just box it up there for you, that sort of zone. So we may have just got to flush to the highs, so really, break down below the lows and get a lower high to continue. Could take us down through 111.36. Now that'll be a better little trade than the Aussie. You got a bit more fat in it, but I think that one's worthwhile watching for there. The pound. Now pound, we're talking about these. It's the same as that, the bigger action. That sort of base building pattern, base building holding it up, and you got higher lows building. base building pattern, potentially a higher low just in here. Now it did. The thing is, we got through this level 131.60. It flushed up through the level, and then it's faded. Okay, straight back down again. It faded basically when at a time when the US dollar was coming under pressure. Right, so that'll be interesting to see if it can actually hold that 131.26 and start to work its way back up, and then you get another high low. And I don't mind, the reason why I circled that is because I feel that that's a bit of a flush. It's clearing the way for another move up and potentially to 132.10. US yen. Now, the Japanese government or the Japanese central bank don't like it when the yen gets too high, and that's why you're starting to see the market coming off a bit. Also, the US dollar is getting sold down, but they come out and said we're watching, with regards to their currency. Okay, they're watching, which in the past has led to intervention. Okay, so if they're intervening, they don't want to see that. They're basically just warning off short sellers into the yen. Short selling the yen means the pair's going up. Okay, so they're just warding off, which would mean any short sellers are starting to go, oh, look, maybe I won't jump into any new positions. Anyone that's holding a short might be going, okay, it might be time to close, and that's probably why you get this rolling over into the pair there. All right, so I would expect it to hold below 122.40, that zone there, maybe a bigger squeeze for the downside because it's just started to break this uptrend. All right, so this zone through here holds, it might start to push down through 121.31. So I'll be looking for a trade off to that one. Gold found some love, safe haven buying. Now the interesting, I'll just go back to the yen. Interestingly, it didn't find. I think that safe haven buying into the yen, it may have triggered this chop sideways, but it wasn't strong enough to really ramp the market higher or press it down. Sorry, if you're going to find safe haven and buying into the yen and the US dollar's going down, then you're going to get the pair heading south. Okay, but it didn't look like it was strong enough to really change any sort of direction significantly at all. Gold, like I said, safe haven, we were looking at this, pressing into this zone here, 1916, and then bouncing. It did exactly that. I spoke about this yesterday in the morning report. Popped up through 1927. It's flushed down through, and we've extended to 1940. So it's got a couple of resistance zones up here, 1940 and 1950, if it wants to continue that move up. Okay, so it's whether or not it can do that, or we start to find a bit of resistance now. That just drawing that line up there, it makes things it look like it could easily extend here, maybe up into the 50 area in 40 zone. Just searching out some liquidity, trying to get some longs in. But I think a good drive higher will have to come on the back of more negative news between Ukraine and Russia. All right, but for now, if they come out with talks like it's all good again, it's all rosy. Yeah, we are committed to some sort of peace deal, which I don't think the Russians will be. I think they look at the long game as opposed to the short game. But if the news comes out like that, you might see that the market drives lower. Now I'm biased towards a move like this, a bit of a push down to 1927, just to clear out some of these longs even below that. Maybe that level to reclaim again, and then another move up to probably, if you can get something off there, a nice little high low of 27, you could get a move up to 40 or 50. Okay. Crude oil. Now, crude oil found some buying again overnight because of those, obviously, what's happening overseas with the war. And it's pushed up through that 107.55 area, which is previous highs. So that action there, it's right back until probably the start of, look at end of Asian session. So end of Asian session was around about here. It started to lift, consolidated just below the level, flushed up through. So whether that's just a flush and we're going to fade back down again, we'll wait and see. It looks to me like it's starting to find some sellers back off that level, 107.55. That would be nice, and that would mean it might set up something on the short side. You might get something like that, okay? You might get a nice little short. So just be wary of that. We don't push down and we do this kind of thing if it wants to do that. Oh, don't know what happened there. Anyway, you might get, don't worry about that. Something like this, we might get a shoulder to work a short off, okay? You want to see it break down, work off that shoulder for a short trade and potential move down to 101.75. We'll just see how that goes. But I'll be biased that way. I'm sort of looking at that as a flush at the moment. Now, obviously, on the flip side, you've got that kind of action there. Now, if that starts to hold, we hold in here and we could straight back up again. So basically keep that. I think there's a trade either way. Just how big it is. I think bigger would be on the downside, but what's happening overseas could be keeping buyers providing support into oil, looking for those higher prices. Copper. Now, copper has had a bit of a push up through here, attacked into these highs again. So whether we've got a double top just in here, or are we getting a double top when we fade, which means I'll be looking for that lower high to come into play. and a move back down again, or is this just that it has reacted off there, but it's going to pull back, couldn't get through the first time, holds a higher low of 103.65 and starts to ramp up again. Okay, if the US dollar is going to press down, it's supportive of copper, but copper's not quite reacting that way. You can see it's actually pushed down when the US dollar was coming to that support zone. So I think it's anticipating that maybe some more strength to come back into that US dollar, and we're looking to basically grind our way down again. Bitcoin, a couple of cryptos really did nothing overnight. Markets pretty much went sideways, had a bit of a flush up, bit of a flush down to that support zone. I think it's looking a little bit heavy. I'm sort of looking for some sort of action down through 46.875, but they could easily flush down here and straight back up and get buoyed back up into 47.570. Okay, Ethereum, much of the same sideways action at the moment. It's sort of stuck in that range between 34.38 and 33.32. So not really anything I'm keen on just there. All right, guys, that's it. We'll call it a day there. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully, if you like what you hear, and help us spread the word and help us build the community, and leave us a like on the YouTube channel and subscribe there. A lot more free information. Remember to look at the website too at www.tradethestructure.com. All right, guys, we'll speak to you again soon. Cheers, bye.